I'm Joan Hawkins, and I'm reading a story from my recently published book, School and Suicide, put out by Alien Buddha Press, and this is called French Lessons. I began studying French my second year of college. Before that, I was an English major, struggling through classes devoted to D.H. Lawrence and Hemingway. Not that I didn't enjoy those classes. I did. They just didn't give me focus. To say that French did is to put it mildly. The language ripped through my life like a heat-seeking missile, taking me first to Paris, then to graduate school, the French village of Brignon, and finally a career teaching cinema. One class upended my life, and this story is about that class, French 1. It was grueling. We met at 8 a.m. 5 days a week. A ragtag working-class group of musicians and actors, Xerox clerks and waitresses, insomniacs. Stumbling in bleary-eyed every morning after late-night shifts and gigs, we balanced cups of tepid coffee and struggled with the myriad delicate moods and nuances of French verb tenses. The passé composé, the imparfait, the subjunctif, and the dizzying, purely literary passé simple. French is the language of diplomacy. And diplomacy, as we quickly learned, is challenging. In this case, it was made even more challenging by the textbook. Mise en train, which means put into motion or warm up, was co-written by the French absurdist playwright Eugene Ionesco, and featured chapters in which people whose faces had been stolen had to purchase new ones. Should they buy a long nose, a short nose, or un nez en trompette, a trumpet nose? Did they really need a mouth? What about cheeks? In the very first lesson, Marie-Jeanne, a painfully nearsighted, myope young woman, is badly frightened by a gray mouse, un petit souris gris, and faints, s'évanouit, on the floor, par terre. 2 lessons later, a crocodile enters the classroom, and the students flee, leaving by the window. Les étudiants sautent par la fenêtre, because crocodiles are hungry at noon, the book says. While students at fancier colleges were learning to ask how to get to the library, we tracked our trio of main characters, nearsighted Marie-Jeanne, deaf Jean-Marie, and the little mouse on their flight through Paris. The crocodile was devious, and our merry band had to devise circuitous and complicated plans of escape, made all the more difficult by the fact that they were disabled. Jean-Marie, our deaf character, was a steady source of puns, as he misread lips and mistook everything. And poor Marie-Jeanne was in constant danger of falling down the metro stairs or trying to make friends with the crocodile, whom she continually mistook for a cat. Only the mouse, le petit souris gris, had a firm grip on the situation, and he was very small, constantly threatened by menacing cats and greengrocers, and understandably quite nervous. Il souffre de douleur aux nerfs. I don't recall that he ever fainted, but he did suffer terribly from migraines, and he pissé, in the most inconvenient places. Now, in the hands of a less gifted teacher, this book could have been a disaster. But Madame Longchamp, Sharon, was something of an actress herself. Certainly she believed in movement, leading us through the HLL building, upstairs, downstairs, à droite, à gauche, having us act out s'évanouit par terre, fainting on the floor, and telling us crazy stories about her own life in France. She was American, married to a Frenchman, un Français, who was attaché to the French embassy in San Francisco. In our more quixotic moments, we joked that they were both spies. Monsieur Longchamp, Jacques, definitely had the appearance of a spy. Sharon brought him to class once so we could see what an attaché looked like, and I remember him sitting on a wooden chair wearing his trench coat, engulfed in a cloud of Gauloise smoke. Sharon herself was an elegant, never-ending source of delight. Marie-Jeanne is also the word for marijuana, she told us once. If you get confused, just remember the characters are all stoned. She gave us all posters from the French Communist Party and explained the Algerian War to us in baby French. And when one of the actresses, Candy, Bonbon, we called her, was cast in an Ionesco play, Sharon brought in a scene from The Bald Soprano, La Cantatrice Chauve, so we could read some real Ionesco. We adored her. Now, the woman who usually taught French too, Madame Martin, was another matter altogether. We had seen her angrily tapping the chalkboard in the classroom next to ours, leading her students in dreary recitations. We had talked to her students in the downstairs canteen, and we knew she was no fun at all. Didn't like the book, didn't like the people she taught, didn't particularly like French. So as the fall semester wore on, we mounted a campaign to persuade Sharon to switch courses the following term and teach French too, so we could continue as a group. When she told us the decision was not up to her, we stormed the chairman's office, threatening to defect to Spanish if he didn't make the proper assignment. Somewhat startled, he did. And so we spent a full year with Sharon and Ionesco, selling and buying faces, finding out that Marie-Jeanne not only fainted, but would faint while Jean-Marie was trying to speak, and learning what one could say au tribunal, before a judge, if one were caught stealing a nose. My boyfriend, who studied German at the fancy university, had a serious, heavy-breathing sort of textbook, and he thought the French lessons I described were ridiculous. But I was a surrealist at heart, and I loved that class. And while he learned how to ask directions to the library, I learned the lessons that would serve me well later on when I was an impoverished singer busking in Paris. How to jump a turnstile and get away from crocodiles and cops, les flics. Where you could find a public restroom in the City of Light when you had to pisser. And how to persuade a greengrocer to donate an apple, une pomme, to the hungry artistic cause. You act out s'évanouit par terre and pretend to faint on the floor. Thank you.